So, hello. I have recently talked about Lauma and how I think she's going to be a character who is going to support another 5-star in the future, and that is something that we've seen increasingly common in today's, landscape of Genshin. So let's talk about it real quick. So, let's go ahead and let's look at Emily real quick. I mean, it's very obvious to just say Kanich, right? And then Mualani, no, there was not a support for Mualani. You could say Shieldon, but Shieldon is too general and not necessarily enough of a character clearly directly meant to be used with the character, right? It is insanely hot in my room, and I also just took a shower, so let's get through this video fast. All right, so then we have Silali, which would obviously be for Mavuika. There's not even a chance to even debate that. If you debate that, you're a dumb. Yeah. So then we have Miss Coffee for Skirk, and now we have Inefa for Flynn's. It is a very common idea that now we're not seeing supports necessarily for the sake of supports. Like, I mean, we could go back down. I mean, we could talk about Kazuha. Kazuha was literally based on every single person's team. Now, we do have Shieldon, again, sure, whatever, but when we got supports like Venti, it wasn't, for a specific, character. Ganyu, technically a support, wasn't for a specific character, right? Diona also, right? We see a support like Shenhe was there for Freeze. To be fair, was for Ayaka because there wasn't another support you could have gone to. I guess Ganyu also, and Ganyu or Ayaka, but Ayaka was very clearly the character. And then we go to Yelan. This character was just like you put your hands up and you're like, why did they drop this character, right? Because at the time we didn't have the 20% HP at all, right? Like you can see why she got dropped, but you can also see this is a support character that didn't really have like a clear character that she was being used with, right? So who knows? And then we go ahead, Nilou. I mean, you could call her a support character, but it's not exactly like Nilou is supporting, if we decide to call Nilou a support character, it's not exactly like we're looking at him like, oh man, yeah, Alhaitham, right? Like, that was not the character. No. Nilou had her own team, and it was a whole thing, right? And we go ahead, and we can go ahead and look at Dea, support character, one of the worst support characters of all time, right? Baiju, he's a support character, didn't really have, like, one specific character he was going to buff. Sinnoh did work pretty good with him, but Sinnoh was trash, right? So, kind of a little difficult to give Baiju any more points than just like, oh, he was really there to just be another healer for Furina, so that way, these Hyper Bloomin' teams can actually work with Furina, and overall, that's what happened. And that's really where Baiju gained his value in as a support. It wasn't like he was specifically designed for Furina, but we are increasingly seeing, very clearly that supports didn't used to be designed for specific DPSs. Now we are seeing that, right? And I want to just point out that a lot of people, previously, I did not have a problem with saying, oh yeah, I'ma get C1 Hu Tao, I'ma get R1 Hu Tao. There is a reason why I go ahead and I compare with the C1 or the R1. And that is because when people have a favorite character, God, my arm is like literally wet. I can't even tell if that's sweat or just like from my shower. I hope it's from my shower and I just didn't dry off enough, but dang. But we have that. But yeah, people didn't have a problem with that. Now people are starting to have a problem with, oh, Miss Coffee came out and she buffed like every single crowd character, but it's very clearly that Miss Coffee came out for Skirk, right? There's not necessarily another, thing to say about that. Miss Coffee came out for Skirk. If Skirk did not exist, I am very confident in saying that Miss Coffee would have never been released. She wouldn't have been, right? So supports at this point in the game are beginning to not necessarily be supports in general, right? Like Shieldon, and when they are like Shieldon, they're not even nearly as strong as, people like Silali, Eon-san, right? Eon-san's a little weird to, say. I could see that Shieldon is as strong as Eon-san with her old red shred and stuff. Bad example. But, Miss Coffee, right? And then you also have, I hesitate to say Emily. Emily was probably the weaker of this, but we've seen now the last two of these kind of supports, and now probably with Inefa, because I want to just point out, and if you have Inefa with, Flins. Yeah, that guy. If you have that, I'm assuming Flins is gonna get a pretty gnarly buff. Just saying. So Inefa here, and especially if you have her weapon getting 40% more lunar charge damage just for the entire team, I mean, that's just gonna be good, no matter how you slice it. So Inefa here is gonna be a pretty good character for Flins. That is one thing I wanted to talk about here, because, like, we're going into this state of, like, you know, if you summon for a DPS, I don't think you should summon again until their support is released. Or most likely, because what we've seen is that supports release and then the DPS is released, because let's go ahead and check. So as you can see, support, DPS, then we go support, DPS, then we go ahead and we do support, DPS. So, and then again, Inefa, support, DPS. So that the strategy that they're doing is they're releasing the support first, which then lets us see what we're actually going to see with these characters. So yeah, could I see this end up having a huge effect on the way that free-to-play players enjoy the game? I would say yes, right? Because, I mean, this is a character that if you don't have for Flins, I imagine it's going to be pretty noticeable, right? I imagine Inefa is going to be pretty noticeable that she's not a part of Flynn's team, because I imagine this character is going to be really insane for Flynn's, right? And, you know, it's just going to end up being the same, right? Where these supports where, you know, I'll talk about it now. Silali is a 30% increase towards Mavwika's team because she is the melt option, right? Now, there is other options like Kaya, but Kaya is nowhere near as accessible as Silali. I'm going to flat out say that because I've been playing this game for way longer than 99% of players, and if I don't have C6 Kaya, you probably don't either, right? What's Lisa's constellation? C2. She's C2. I could have a C2, you know, Kaya. Amber is C1. Like, I don't have these characters at high constellations. I'm surprised Kaya is this high constellation, right? So I just, you know, to make that point clear, Kaya's a replacement for Silali, but I don't even think I can consider him, right? I don't even, when I'm making a tier list, I'll be honest, I don't ever consider those kind of supports, right? Now, Lisa, I mean, well, generally because there's better options, right, obviously. But if I'm like, oh, man, if I'm making a Mavwika support tier list, I'm probably not putting Kaya on the list because I'm pretty sure he needs C6 to be at that level for, you know, Mavwika. I haven't tested, but I imagine, you know, just like all the other, you know, times Kaya has been useful, his C6 is incredibly important to him being useful. So, yeah, it is important to understand that this is how Genshin is operating now. And I think a lot of people should understand that now and realize, hey, maybe I don't go for C1. Maybe I don't go for weapon, right? Because I know a lot of people do still go for C1, do still go for weapon, right? And I do as well, right? But at this point, I'm beginning to, you know, think about it and be like, if they're going to keep doing this, maybe C0R0 is the way that I should be comparing, right? Maybe. But at the same time, there are, you know, I've already gone this deep, right? So, like, I have, you know, Mavwika, I have a whole bunch of numbers with her weapon, not with, you know, her, you know, C0R0, right? I don't have that, right? You know, same thing with Shilonen. I have a lot of, you know, support, you know, ideas with her weapon, but not, you know, without her weapon, right? And I mean, I could test that, right? But I can't because I have C2 also. Because this was the point where I was like, I like this character, I'm gonna get this character, right? That's what I thought when I got this character, right? When I like a character, I generally invest more into them. That is the whole aspect of my, you know, playstyle. I like investing into the characters that I like. And Shilonen is probably the second, you know, Natlan character that I like in terms of that. I would say Mavwika, right? And then you also have Shilonen. Skirk, if anybody's wondering, don't get C2. It's just not worth it. I just don't like it that much. It really, I've not made use of her being able to use her burst at all. I just typically just go ahead and do normal rotations and stuff. Really kind of a letdown, but I get it. I do wish C2 Skirk was a little better, but it's not. Understand that when we get to Flynn's, if you don't have Inefa will be getting a rerun hopefully soon. I know that a lot of people probably aren't gonna believe me when I say that. Well, I say hopefully. And I do say hopefully because we only just now got Emily's. Oh, no, she's gone. Okay, hold on. Oh, so we only just recently in 5.7 got Emily's rerun. That was her first rerun. Now, Emily, oh my, there's literally water. I'm hoping that's because my hair is wet. I'm assuming that's her. It's not that hot. But yeah, we only just recently got Emily's rerun in 5.7 and she came out in, you know, 4.8. right? So it's not like uncommon or not unprecedented to think that NFA isn't getting a rerun until 6.7, which I mean, that would be insane, and I would feel so bad for the Flynn's mains. But I think the silver lining I can say to you guys, if you're a Flynn's main who's skipped Enefa and you don't have her now, you know, we do have the Archon coming up. And I imagine a lot of the benefits that we see with Enefa already, we're gonna see with the Archon, because a lot of what it seems like with, you know, the new system is that you just need to have 2 of the Nod Cry characters on the team. So Enefa's providing a lot of that. Ayano also. So you can also just use Ayano. I don't know. It is going to be tough. It is going to be tough if you don't have Enefa, I think, because it seems like Enefa is going to be really nice for Flynn's. I haven't really seen, you know, much about him, but, you know, that's what I've always been under the impression of, is like Enefa is going to be pretty good in like an update, right, where she, you know, gets a character that she can actually work with Flynn's, and we're now seeing that it might not be until 6.7 she reruns. So genuinely, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but maybe question if you do want to see, you know, if you want to summon on Flynn's if you don't have Enefa, right? Because like, again, you know, I imagine Enefa, like flat out, Enefa is probably going to be 20% increase. It is probably going to be the equivalent of getting an extra Flynn, right? If you get C1 or R1 Flynn's, I imagine it will be the same equivalence. Sadly, that is just to where I'm looking at what I think is going to happen. Did they reveal the banners? This site doesn't okay. I know they revealed the this banner, but apparently they revealed the other banner also at some point. Huh, interesting. I didn't know. Like, this site doesn't update with the 4 stars unless they know them. So I'm assuming Genshin officially revealed the banners somewhere, somehow. So yeah. It is also gamewith.net, by the way, just in case you guys are interested in, you know, looking at this website. It's great. Great website. I love it. I use it all the time when I'm going back to look at, you know, version updates and stuff. It's just sad to say, but I could definitely see Flynn's being a character who we just, you know, like could be bad at this point, right? And all this to really say is that Lauma is striking me exactly as this support character. She is not an overall generalist support like Shilonen, right? And she's buffing specific reactions. Lauma is just going to end up being like Silali for the Archon or something. Maybe. Or, you know, maybe for the next DPS, right? I think, you know, Dendro Lady, you know, could be a DPS. Who knows? I mean, it would make sense. I mean, I was like, oh, we already have 2 Dendro 5 stars with them, but could be good, right? Like, Lauma could be like an insane part to her kit. So if you like, you know, someone that may be coming up, right, the Dendro Lady, it sucks because you'd have to summon for the support, then get to know the kit of the other lady. You know, it does suck. You know, I can't, I mean, it took this long. Like, listen, I mean, you know, we said, you know, Emily 5.7 took this long for Mulani to rerun. It's 5.8, and she came out in 5.0. So it took 8 updates for Mulani to rerun. I mean, it is what it is at this point. It's sadly, I would say, honestly, free-to-play players, it is seemingly that this is how the game's going to operate now, from now on. And I think a lot of you guys should realize this now. I'm giving you this information. Take it and make better decisions with it. Because at this point, if, you know, Flynn's comes out, I have to be like, do you have a Nefa, right? Like, if you don't have a Nefa, you know, is it still worth getting Flynn's? I could test that. If you don't plan on getting that character, don't get Skirk. Skirk loses like 50%, over 50% of her value, over her damage overall, just because she doesn't have Miss Coffee on her team. I can't recommend people to get that kind of character if they don't want to actually get that other character, right? If they don't want to get, you know, like Miss Coffee, then yeah, don't get Skirk, sadly to say. So yeah, if you're summoning for 1 character nowadays, you are summoning for 2. It's just how Genshin is going to operate. However you want to see it, whether that's bad, whether that's good, because now, you know, instead of summoning for, you know, C1 of a character that you used to love, now you're just going to summon for another character on their team. Makes it so, you know, now support characters, like, it's not like these support characters die after their main DPSs, you know, lose. Like, Silali, I imagine, is still going to be pretty useful later down the line. It's just like, when and is that going to actually happen, right? It's not guaranteed to happen. Silali could fall off a cliff just like them, but who knows, right? So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.